Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Transportation, Finance, and Policy Committee for this March 14th. And we have 5 bills on the calendar. And our first item of business is the minutes for March 12th. Representative Petersburg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will approve the minutes of March 12th as presented.
Is there discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the motion prevails. I'm sorry, we have 4 bills. We have one 2717, which was originally posted, but that is no longer going to be heard today. We hope to hear it next week. Okay. Our first bill today is House File 3858, and I move that House File 3858 be referred to the Committee on Commerce, Finance, and Policy. Representative Rehm, I understand you have an amendment.
Yes, I do, Chair Hornstein. I have an amendment, and I can go into the details of it if you'd like.
Yeah, just a little overview for the A3.
Sure. So this amendment would eliminate jaywalking and the school zone speed limit that we had in there, and also revises a definition of vulnerable road users, and also authorizes multiple mode e-bikes on bike paths and bike trails.
Okay. Is there discussion to the A3 amendment? Any questions? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, the motion prevails. And now we have House File 3858 as amended before us. Proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Chair Hornstein and members. So with the passage of last year's e-bike bill and the growing popularity of e-bikes, it has become even more important for us to pass legislation that clarifies the definition of an e-bike, its usage, and expands upon the ways we can keep e-bikes safer on the road. And I also have a couple of testifiers here. I have Mike Wojak from Minnesota Bike Alliance here to also talk about the bill briefly, if you'd like.
Sure. Welcome to the committee, Mr. Wojak. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Representative Rehm. My name is Michael Wojak. I'm the Executive Director of the Bicycle Alliance of Minnesota, and I'm here to testify in favor of the bill. Our organization has taken a look at the bill, and I'm going to provide a brief overview of why we think this bill is important. I understand that you have a nice long agenda today, so I'm going to do my best to be incredibly concise, but I am always happy to answer questions. I'm one of those folks from greater Minnesota that believes that walking, biking, rolling should be safe for all Minnesotans. This bill helps in a number of ways. First and foremost, the items that were most contentious potentially in this legislation have been removed by the author's amendment. So for any of you looking at the jaywalking or speed zone stuff, that's not in the revised bill. The e-bike language recognizes that there have been a lot of issues with things that are not e-bikes, but people refer to as being e-bikes, and that's due to a lot of loopholes in the legislation where, for example, somebody can sell a bike that can be easily modified to go beyond what an e-bike should do. If you see a bike doing something greater than what an e-bike doing something greater than what a regular bicycle would do, it's probably not an e-bike, and this legislation tightens those definitions and makes sure that the products out there are safe and comply with the restrictions on e-bikes. Additionally, the legislation pertaining to complete streets on here ensures that the roadway designs throughout the state of Minnesota, the safety of all users must be considered throughout the design process. That's something that's been missing in past legislation, is also important to us. Also, driver education must now include the responsibilities of a driver around vulnerable road users and motorcycles. And finally, in discussions with the Minnesota Department of Public Safety and Department of Transportation, we've gone over some concerns, and with the amendment, we've addressed those concerns. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much. Questions of the testifier? Representative Petersburg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In this bill, there's a lot of discussions about law enforcement officers not being able to stop pedestrians and others from within crosswalks and so forth. What was the need and purpose for that? It seems to me that we'd want to start enforcing some of the laws that are designed to keep us safe.
Thank you, Representative, for that question. That is all of that language has been removed from the bill, so it's not up for consideration in the current version. That was Your points were raised by others as well, and that's why it's not currently part of this bill.
So all those were replaced or, excuse me, Mr.
Eliminated, I think, in the
Yeah.
A3 amendment.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? And thanks for that question, Representative Petersburg, that clarification. Okay, is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to testify? Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Good morning, Chair Hornstein and committee. My name is Matt Moore. I'm here to testify in support of House File 3858 on behalf of the Bicycle Alliance of Minnesota. And I'm also policy counsel for People for Bikes, the national advocacy group for cyclists, and the Trade Association for the U.S. bicycle industry. We represent over 330 companies that make bicycles, electric bicycles, components, and accessories, and supply those products to the bike shop in your town. People for Bikes actually created the three-class model law to regulate electric bicycles, and we're now here to advance some provisions to improve upon those definitions. House File 3858 makes clear that an electric bicycle that is modified to exceed the power and speed limitations in the definition of an electric bike is no longer an electric-assisted bicycle and cannot be labeled as an electric bicycle. Secondly, the bill adds a definition of multiple mode electric-assisted bicycle to Chapter 169. A multiple mode electric bike is one that can be switched or programmed by the operator to operate as more than one of the three legal classes of electric bicycle. Thirdly, the bill requires a multiple mode electric bicycle to be labeled as the highest class in which it can operate. For example, a bike that could be a Class 1 pedal-assisted bike or a Class 2 throttle-powered bicycle must be labeled as a Class 2 bike. Importantly, the bill requires that a multiple mode electric assisted bicycle equipped with a throttle must not be capable of exceeding 20 miles per hour on motor power alone. The reason we're here is that some manufacturers, not our members, and foreign online sellers have been advertising and selling vehicles as Class 2 e-bikes that are designed to have their speed and power limitations removed or easily defeated by the user. Some of these products have motors with power of 4,000 watts or more and are capable of speeds as high as 50 or 60 miles per hour when delimited. Obviously, that is a moped or motorcycle, should not be operated or regulated as an electric bicycle or used on bicycle facilities. So to address these products and the sales practices associated with them, House File 3858 adds new provisions to Chapter 325F to regulate the sale of both electric bicycles and similar devices that are not electric bicycles. Let me pause there and see if there are any questions about, especially about the addition to Chapter 325, deceptive trade practice.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Are there any member questions? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate the testimony. Member discussion? Questions of the author? Oh, sorry, we have another testifier, I believe. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Chair Hornstein, Representative Reams. My name is Brian Martinson, and I currently serve as the non-motorized representative on the Metropolitan Council's Transportation Advisory Board. But today, I'm here representing the Bicycle Alliance of Minnesota in support of House File 3858. I specifically wish to address the provision in Section 13 of this bill, which clarifies, elaborates, and gives guidance to the MnDOT Commissioner for how the concept of complete streets is to be implemented. Complete streets, as many of you know, is the planning, scoping, design, implementation, operation, and maintenance of roads in order to reasonably address the safety and accessibility needs of users of all ages and abilities. Complete streets considers the needs of motorists, pedestrians, transit users, and vehicles, bicyclists, and commercial emergency vehicles. Living as we do in a car-dominant and car-dependent society, it's easy to see the idea of complete streets as a mere amenity or something that's perhaps nice to have for those who don't use single occupancy motor vehicles for their main transportation needs. Yet the need to significantly shift travel modes away from single occupancy vehicle use are real and urgent. In 2022, Minnesota's Climate Action Framework set goals to reduce greenhouse gas emissions 50% by 2030 and to achieve net zero emissions by 2050. Transportation remains, after ag, the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions in the state. Information available from the MnDOT Transportation Greenhouse Gas Emissions Impact Mitigation Working Group, mouthful, makes clear that attainment of greenhouse gas emissions reductions from the transportation sector are going to require concerted efforts on multiple fronts. These will include emissions reducing infrastructure, reduced carbon intensity of fuels and increases in fuel efficiency, and increased use of zero-emission vehicles. It is also clear that a reduction in vehicle miles traveled by single occupancy motor vehicles will be required. Accomplishing this will require that more of us feel it is safe, accessible, and feasible to make more of our trips via transit, walking, and biking. Unless MnDOT fully embraces and implements a comprehensive complete street strategy for all roadway projects going forward, that is unlikely to happen. Viewed in this light, it becomes clear that the systematic and comprehensive implementation of a complete street strategy is not simply amenity, not simply a nice to have, but rather is an essential element of our attaining sustainable climate goals in the state, in addition to making our roadways safe and usable by all. Therefore, I urge you to support this bill. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any questions of the testifier? Hey, appreciate your coming, Mr. Martinson. Now, committee discussion. Representative Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Representative Rehm. Just a comment. I just want to thank you for your continued focus on e-bikes. I tell you, when we did the e-bike rebate program, there was so much excitement and interest over it. It's such a cool area, and I look forward, actually, as my knees continue to deteriorate, to be able to use e-bikes more and more, to be able to stay outside and continue to get around. So thank you for your focus in this area.
Thank you for the comment, Representative Kraft. Representative Rehm.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Kraft and members. So yeah, e-bikes have become so much more popular, and it's really important for us to not confuse them with motorbikes. If you're hearing complaints about e-bikes, it might be because people have confused e-bikes with bikes that really aren't defined as e-bikes in this legislation. So class 1, 2, and 3 e-bikes are regular, the e-bikes. Now, if you have kids in the neighborhood who are 10, 12 years old, and they're riding around on something that's a lot faster, that's going more than 20 miles an hour, that is really dangerous, but that's not an e-bike. So it's really important for us to clarify what an e-bike is and make sure that people understand you have to be 15 years or older to ride them. And also, I don't think it's been pointed out yet, but driver education must include the responsibilities of a driver around vulnerable road users and motorcycles. So that's also part of this legislation. And I do think, as e-bikes become more popular, it's important that we make the roads safer for everyone, including people who ride bikes.
Thank you for that summary comment. And without any further discussion, I'll renew my motion that House File 3858 as amended be referred to the Commerce, Finance, and Policy Committee. Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion prevails. So thank you very much, and you're on your way to Commerce. Our second bill on the agenda is House File 4626, and Vice Chair Tabke will be the testifier. Vice Chair Tabke, good to see you again.
Always.
Been a day or two since you've presented a bill. And would you like to move your bill?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I move that House File 4626 be referred to the Committee on Labor.
Excellent. And you have an amendment to the A1?
Yes, sir, I do. Well, I have the A1 amendment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the A1 amendment fixes there was an issue with where we were citing federal code, and so this fixes that federal citation and code.
Okay. Discussion to the A1? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, the motion prevails. To your bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members. So House File 4626 is a bill that seeks to make improvements to the delivery of the state's border-to-border broadband program and ensure that excavation work by broadband installers in and around utility corridors is done safely and by qualified professionals. And so we do two things in this bill. The first one is current state law requires prevailing wages to be paid to workers on state and federally funded broadband projects, except for the last mile of the project. And so this bill repeals that exemption and ensures that all workers that are working on broadband projects receiving government assistance receive good pay and benefits. And so the second thing that the bill does is it requires that broadband installers need to follow the same safety guidelines that are already required for gas line workers, and they are doing the exact same excavation work around dangerous gas and electric utilities and should be treated the same. So that's what this bill does. Last year alone, the Office of Pipeline Safety reported that there were 1,785 hits to gas and electric lines across the state of Minnesota. So that's 1,785 hits to gas and electric lines. And we need to do better for everyone's safety. There's no cost to this bill, and it's not intended to be slowing anything down, as some folks are asking me about. It's not we want these projects to get done, but we also want to make sure that they get done correctly. And so that's, Mr. Chair, what the bill does, and we have a couple of testifiers.
Great. Any initial questions of the author? Mr. George, good to see you.
It's been a while.
Welcome to the committee.
How you doing?
Good, how are
Good.
you?
I'm good. Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Representative Tabke, for bringing this forward. Mr. Chair and committee, my name is Jason George. I'm the elected business manager of the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 49. We represent 15,000 heavy equipment operators and mechanics in the state of Minnesota, North Dakota, and South Dakota, and we're the state's largest construction union. Thank you for hearing House File 4626 and having this important discussion about the construction aspect of the broadband industry. Local 49 represents a dozen local contractors employing local operators that install broadband in Minnesota. We have heard from our members and our contractors about what they are competing against in this industry, and that is why we are here today, to tell you that there are problems and that we need to do something about it. House File 4626 is our best attempt to address these problems, and we hope that you will support it. In short, the broadband industry falls short of the kind of regulation and safety standards we are used to in other construction industries in Minnesota. Natural gas and electric utility installation is highly regulated, with strict safety and training requirements, and uses contractors that pay union wages and benefits. Oil pipelines the same. MnDOT and every other state agency has prevailing wage requirements and safety measures in place. Drug testing is the standard practice. The vast majority of the equipment operators on these jobs are highly skilled members of Local 49, which ensure that the highest skilled standards are met. Broadband installers have little to no safety regulations or training requirements. Drug testing is not the standard in that industry. The vast majority of equipment operators currently putting in your broadband are not in our union and don't meet our standards. Our agent, Nate Neisinger, and one of our contractors who have decades of experience in this industry are going to tell you about what they see on a daily basis after I'm done. Why should you care? You should care and be concerned because the contractors are installing broadband in the same utility corridors as natural gas and electric utilities. And this is very dangerous work, as you just heard. House File 4626 is a logical solution to address these concerns you will hear about. This bill simply applies the same standards of training and drug testing required by the federal government to operate equipment for the installation of natural gas to the broadband industry. This is common sense to us. You might hear some grumbling about prevailing wage. I suspect you will, which is also part of this bill. You might hear that this will lead to fewer projects or companies won't apply for grants or other things like that. None of that has any basis in reality. The fact is prevailing wage is a part of every other taxpayer-funded industry in Minnesota, and we have none of those issues. The system is tested and works very well. Prevailing wage ensures local area standards for Minnesota equipment operators are respected and protects local businesses that pay area standards as well. It also ensures taxpayer-funded projects employ people that will spend their money in your districts, not in other states. We have had discussions with our friends on both sides of the aisle about this issue for years, and I'm proud to say that prevailing wage for equipment operators has strong bipartisan support in this legislature and in Congress. Adding prevailing wage will not slow down the build of the system. I would argue it will help us meet the challenge. We have never seen the amount of work available for heavy equipment operators as we see right now. Our members are busy building this state and this region, due in large part to the work that you all have done here, investing in public projects and infrastructure. In every industry, we have built programs to recruit and train new operators, including in our public high schools. We have added 1,500 new active members in the last 5 years and more than doubled the size of our apprenticeship program. We have training at our 400-acre state-of-the-art facility on directional drilling, hydro-excavation, backhoes, and do this training around inactive utilities we bury in the ground to simulate real-life experiences. We are well-positioned to recruit and train more operators to expand broadband, but our members will not work for $18 an hour with no benefits. In this work environment, nobody but the bottom level of skill or no skill will operate equipment for those wages. If the majority of these contractors aren't working with us, you have to ask, where are they going to find operators? They will not be able to recruit skilled operators from Minnesota paying $18 an hour with no benefits. They will be bringing low-wage and low-skill operators from elsewhere, if they can even get them to come. The work will be slow, they will struggle to staff their jobs, there will be more accidents, and the build-out of the system will suffer right along with the workers. This is the real concern you should have about system build-out. In closing, I want to remind you, we represent 15,000 people. If you include their family members, it's close to 40,000 lives. Very few of them live in Representative Hornstein's district in St. Paul and Minneapolis. I know. Yeah. They largely live in rural and exurban districts. Our members need broadband too, that's the point. Nobody's trying to slow this down. We just want to make sure that it's done right, that the taxpayers benefit, that local workers benefit, that local contractors benefit, and that's not what's happening right now. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Representative Petersburg, did you have a question for Mr. George? Well,
Yes,
Mr.
yeah,
George,
Mr. George.
Mr. George.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And really, what we're talking about here is that provision that allowed for last mile of installation not to be included in the prevailing wage. And the discussions in my office indicated that the concern wasn't as much about the wages as much as it was about the misinterpretation or the abuse of the term last mile. And so the question comes, and the other thing, as your testimony said, you're not going to be able to find people for $18 without it. So then the question is, should we have not spent more time in defining what the last mile is to solve that problem, rather than taking away this problem or this issue, which might be something that a local subcontractor might be able to do with confident and competent people? It seems like this is really going a little bit far beyond what the actual problem was, which I was told was people are pushing the envelope on what the last mile actually means. It doesn't mean a mile. It means actually just from the primary utility to the house. And wouldn't it have been better just to clarify that, Mr. Chair? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, thanks for the question. We're open to ideas. If there's a better solution to get at that last mile aspect, because you're 100% right, your packet includes information about the percentage of projects that are, being deemed last mile. We all know that there's some funny stuff going on there with those determinations. So if there's a better way to define last mile that gets at what you're talking about, we're open to having that discussion. To my knowledge, Representative Tabke, nobody's come to visit you about that issue at all. We'd welcome the industry to come talk to Representative Tabke or us about those ideas, because nobody has.
Mr.
Representative
Chair,
Petersburg.
and thank you. Yeah, I think it was just last week in which that was brought to my attention, so I may look at some options. Thank you.
Sure.
Vice Chair Tabke.
Thank you very much, Chair Hornstein and Representative Petersburg. Yeah, I'm obviously very willing to work with anybody who has ideas or ways we can make this better. My main goal in this is to make sure that we have the right skill sets and the right folks in doing that job. Prevailing wages, folks are making it's making sure that we're setting that floor for things, but we're also needing to make sure that we have the right sets of knowledge in doing this work, because as what people have come to talk to me about with this is the fact that there have been a lot of accidents and issues coming up because we don't have the right qualifications for doing the work.
Representative Petersburg, any follow-up?
Nope, no, that's okay. Thank
Can I
you.
get out of here now?
Sounds like it. I don't see any additional questions.
Thank you, sir.
Next on the testifier list is Nate Neisinger. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, for the record, my name is Nate Neisinger. I am a business agent for the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 49. We represent 15,000 members in Minnesota, North Dakota, and South Dakota who operate heavy machinery. Our members build and maintain excuse me, our region's infrastructure, including roads, bridges, waste and stormwater systems, energy projects, as well as other jobs that require excavation work such as gas, electric, and fiber installation. I specifically represent Local 49 members performing utility installations within the gas, electric, and fiber industries. Minnesota is in the process of investing hundreds of millions of dollars building out the broadband system. This is a critical investment, but it is also critical to ask the question of who's going to install the system and are the workers skilled and qualified to be doing the work. Unfortunately, it is our estimation that this industry has a significant number of low-quality contractors who employ unskilled labor. The wages average from $18 to $25 per hour with little to no benefits, from what I've seen. I have spoken to these workers on job sites. Too many aren't from Minnesota, don't have any training, and are not benefiting as they should for the dangerous work that they do. I have visited hundreds of non-union fiber job sites over the last few years, and have yet to find one employee receiving prevailing wage equivalent benefits. Local 49 represents a dozen contractors that pay living wages with full family health care and retirement contributions. These contractors are being undercut by low-wage, low-skilled contractors from outside Minnesota. Recent negotiations held with our fiber contractors have revealed concerns over who these local contractors with local workers are competing against, and the lack of accountability or regulation in this industry to ensure safety. We believe our conversations with workers and contractors that there is support for drug and alcohol testing, operator qualification requirements, apprentice programs, and CDL requirements that would help clean up this industry and make it safer. In 2023, the Office of Pipeline Safety received 1,785 reports from incidents that caused damage to utilities, the majority of which were a result from insufficient excavation practices. However, there is very little safety regulation in this industry. Broadband infrastructure is often located along other utility corridors, but unlike broadband, gas and electric installers are highly regulated and must follow safety and training requirements. It is a common practice in the gas and electric industry to use hydro excavators for daylighting utilities. This should be encouraged and supported as a measure to increase both employee and public safety. In many cases, especially in town, fiber crews are installing their conduit alongside gas and electric and/or crossing at some point, which means that they would have a responsibility to do this in a safe manner. On a gas crew, every task is considered a covered task, right down to the labor digging alongside the main or service. Most of the training required is awareness and technique-based to avoid line strikes. It would be beneficial to all performing this work to follow the process. We think workers who are digging around all utilities should have to follow the same rules and regulations. To be clear, we do not want to slow the progress of implementing broadband infrastructure. We simply want it to be delivered responsibly, efficiently, and in a safe way so that Minnesotans get the highest quality results from their investments and workers go home safely after the job is completed. We would like to thank Representative Tabke for authoring this legislation, and we appreciate member support. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Dan Widener. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Dan Widener. I'm the president of Mincom Utility Construction. It's a business my wife and I have operated out of Mora, Minnesota. I've worked in the excavation, sewer, water, gas, broadband industry for over 35 years. I've been an owner for 32 years. We will employ between 25 and 30 employees. I pay my employees a negotiated wage with benefits, and they have a pension. As someone who has worked in the industry for over 3 decades, I witness challenges and problems on a regular basis. The first is simple but extremely important. Every employer wants their workers to return home to their families every day. The work we do on a regular basis is dangerous, which is why I believe in good training for our employees and require them to have training such as required in this bill before you. Unfortunately, I see crews and workers that are unskilled, undertrained, and putting themselves and others at risk. Those of us in the industry know that these unskilled operators are often from other states, and this ties into the market price. They set the subcontractor prices that we are forced to work under. And the second, which we deal with on a regular basis, is the lack of transparency in the bidding process. And it is often impossible to find how these contracts are being bid and how they are awarded. It's often on an invite-only basis. And believe me, I've dug deep on this, and it's hard to crack into the market as a small player, 30 employees. Unlike municipal contracts, which we basically exclusively did for a couple of, well, at least a decade and a half because we couldn't break into this market. Those are easy to find. There's multiple bulletins, and there isn't a municipal project that we didn't have the opportunity to bid on. If the work is being done by private dollars, by these small co-op telephone companies, and with private dollars, their bid process is their own choosing. It's up to their board of directors and their customers to keep it fair. But when the contracts are funded by public tax dollars, and every qualified contractor should have the ability to at least bid on these contracts. I am convinced some of these companies do not want a transparent process. These large general contractors are keeping more and more. When I first got into this industry, they were keeping 15%. Now, just by accident, I've seen some of the prices, they're keeping over half. So we're taking all the responsibility, we're performing all the labor, we're managing these projects, and we're getting half of the dollars that are awarded for these projects. And we're forced to do primarily subcontract work in this market. Well, when I'm able to bid a project, I set my price. Because we are a small company with less than 30 employees, we can do this more efficiently with much less overhead, and you don't have half of that 50% of the dollars going towards the owners of these huge companies, which I don't want to disparage. I'm a pro-market, capitalistic, but market, it has to be market driven, and when we're kept out of it, we have no say in the market price. It's getting set by these out of state companies. And we can work more efficiently because our employees are better trained. And in order for us to keep them, we need to pay a competitive wage. Simply put, even though we pay our employees more and provide benefits, we can do projects for less, which means at the end of the day, we can put more fiber in the ground safely and I believe competition is good, and the more contractors that bid in this projects will provide a better value for the taxpayer. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about our business and the problems we face.
Thank you very much for your testimony and for your work. Questions? Okay. Next, we have Brent Christensen. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. For the record, my name is Brent Christensen, and I'm the president and CEO of the Minnesota Telecom Alliance. We're a trade association that is made up of a mix of cooperatives, family-owned, privately held, and publicly traded broadband providers throughout Minnesota. While MTA members have many different corporate structures, one thing we have in common is our commitment to serving Minnesota. This year, my members are planning on investing nearly $300 million in private capital to expand broadband in Minnesota. And I'm going to change my testimony up a little bit and focus on 3 different areas that were previously testified. I want to talk about safety, then I want to talk about prevailing wage, and then I want to talk to you about how you can tell this is a bad idea. On the safety part, I am proud to say that MTA has a telecom-specific safety program that we have operated for over 40 years. We currently train 3,300 employees from 65 different companies across 6 states. And I have the data, contrary to previous testifiers, that prove that we are a safe industry. OSHA has established a specific mathematical calculation that enables any company to report the reportable incident rates, lost times, severity rates, so that they are comparable across the industry, any industry or group. The standard base of this calculation is based on a rate of 200,000 labor hours, and that number equates to 100 employees working 40 hours a week, 50 weeks per year. Using the standard base rate, any company can calculate their rates and get a percentage per 100 employees. This is known as the OSHA recordable incident rate or incident rate. The incident rate for a specific company or industry can be calculated by multiplying the number of recorded cases by 200,000 and then dividing that number by the number of labor hours by the company. The lower the number, the safer you are. A good incident rate for OSHA, as determined by OSHA, is 3.4. Our current rate for all the employees that we train is 2. Far better than what OSHA considers good. My second issue is prevailing wage, the whole discussion about prevailing wage. First of all, I take exception with that. As a private employer, we do pay a very good wage and benefits for our employees. That's the only way we're going to attract and keep them. The second issue with it, and the reason we oppose this, is we're not opposed to prevailing wage. We're opposed to the fact that there aren't any telecom-specific jobs to equate to. Recently, I had a member tell me that when they had to pay prevailing wage on a middle-mile project, they were taking a fiber splicer, someone who sits in a trailer in a ditch and burns 2 pieces of glass together to get fiber to work. They were comparing that to a high-voltage electrical lineman. That's not right. So if we're going to, before we advance prevailing wage and before we extend it to last-mile projects, we're going to have job classifications in our industry that actually work and match. And then finally, the reason you can tell this is not a good idea is because this legislature put a process in place to deal with the complex issues of broadband. 15 years ago, the legislature established the Governor's Broadband Task Force. And members of the union are on that task force, and they know that process. And the process is that every year they have informational meetings, they develop policy recommendations, and they submit a report to the legislature on what they recommend for changes in broadband. This bill circumvents that process, and that's how you can tell that it's wrong. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to stand for questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Christensen. Questions? Okay, thank you for your testimony. All right, is there anyone else from the public that wishes to testify on House File 4626? welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Morning, Mr. Chair. My name is Tony Mendoza. I'm counsel to the Minnesota Cable Communications Association. MCCA is concerned about the impact that HF 4626 will have on achieving universal broadband for Minnesota. The state and the Biden administration set aggressive goals for universal broadband and dedicated millions to achieving those goals. The Biden administration is allocating $652 million to Minnesota through the BEAD program administered by NTIA. In designing BEAD, NTIA mandated that the Office of Broadband Development award grants, quote, in a manner that ensures the deployment of service to all unserved locations. NTIA provided OBD 4 years to deploy $652 million to meet that mandate. The Minnesota legislature set a goal that by 2026, all Minnesota businesses and homes have access to broadband at 100 over 20 megabits per second. This year, the Office of Broadband Development celebrated its 10th anniversary. Over those 10 years, MCCA members have worked in strong partnership with OBD to create what's known nationally as the Minnesota model. Through that model, we've brought our state to the threshold of universal broadband. BEAD funding provides a once-in-a-generation opportunity to cross that threshold. OBD has already submitted its BEAD plan, which is currently under review by NTIA, which is a division of the U.S. Department of Commerce. Recognizing the need for speed and to stretch BEAD funding as far as it can go to achieve the federal universal broadband mandate, Congress did not apply the Davis-Bacon Act or the other regulations that are in this bill to BEAD. For the same reasons, the Minnesota legislature hasn't imposed prevailing wage or other labor regulations on state-funded last-mile broadband projects. This bill puts the Office of Broadband Development in a catch-22. If prevailing wage and the other regulations in this bill become law, the state will fail to meet its federal mandate and the state's 2026 goal. Whether you support these policies in concept is beside the point. It's simply a question of math. Because MCCA believes it's important for Minnesota to meet its federal mandate and its state broadband goal, MCCA opposes the bill. If the committee moves forward with this bill, we have several questions about it, some of which were addressed by Mr. Christensen earlier, which we echo his testimony. We will continue to work with the stakeholders and the author on these issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mendoza. Questions of the testifier? Okay. All right, anyone else from the audience? Okay, discussion. Okay, we have Representative Petersburg and Representative Olson. Major Olson will go first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've got some serious concerns with this bill. The first part of the bill sounds great, makes everyone really feel nice and cushy about safety. Everyone wants safety. Everyone wants to know that the pipelines, these gas lines aren't getting hit. I think that it's a little disingenuous to identify individuals who are not a part of the union as low wage, low skills. Most of the individuals who perform this sort of labor in my district are not union members, but they perform very skilled labor, and I appreciate everything that they do. When you're talking about prevailing wage, this is what's incredibly concerning because you're placing a one-size-fits-all price tag on the state of Minnesota. Now, for those of you who don't know, things cost different amounts of money in different places, and in Minnesota, they also do. Take, for example, the median cost of a home. Where I come from, the median cost of a home, as of last year, was $134,500. The median cost of a home in Hennepin County is $354,901. That's a significant difference. Maybe we should have a prevailing house cost, you know, like I would love it if my house cost $354,000, if it was worth $354,000, not if it costs. I'm okay paying what I paid for it, but I would love it if it was worth $354,000. Blanket statement, one size fits all, is not an appropriate way of addressing this issue. I think there are issues. A lot of my telecommunication providers are saying, yeah, we would work on this. I think it's a little difficult when House File 4626 was introduced. It was introduced a week ago. So this conversation, obviously, this is the first committee stop. So this is the first start to the conversation. This definitely needs to be felt out a little bit. I talked to a couple of my individuals, my CEOs down there, And they said that they have actually created projects that were subject to the prevailing wage clause here with state funds or federal tax dollars. And one project in my district had to increase their cost by 30%. So if these grants are covering 50%, but you're increasing your cost by 30%, this is no longer really a viable project. And we're talking about investing something like $35,000 per mile to get this stuff in the ground. And if the state's going to cover half of it, but they're really only covering 20% of the cost because, let's be real here, 30% increase, there's only a 20% benefit. This makes it untenable. This makes it a situation that is difficult for these individuals who are just trying to provide the best connectivity possible to the state. We had one that increased by 30%. I had another one that was increased by 25%. So this is a difficult scenario that we're talking about. Definitely could use some fine tuning, I believe, absolutely. Now, I believe that the executive director of the Minnesota Office of Broadband Development is here in the room. I have a question if they're present somewhere. Thank you, Director Mackey, for joining us. My question is, was the Office of Broadband Development ever consulted about this proposal? And in your opinion, do you think this would potentially slow down the sending out of fiber in the state of Minnesota if we had increased costs of 30%?
Director, could you state your name for the record?
Sure. Thank you very much. My name is Bree Mackey, and I'm the Executive Director at the Office of Broadband Development. Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the question. Our office was not consulted on this particular bill, no. However, the lines of communication have now been opened with the office. As far as slowing it down, I think the best answer I can give on that at this point is we are working on our BEAD, Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Plan, and are negotiating and working very closely with our federal partners to get that approved. And any delays in going back and forth to make sure that we are meeting all the requirements in that plan will delay the infrastructure portion of getting the $652 million and the infrastructure starting.
Representative Wilson.
Oh, thank you so much. That was pretty much the end of my question. So just to kind of wrap it up, I think taking a one-size-fits-all approach is a harmful thing for the state. I think this will absolutely slow down the development of broadband in the state. And just a quick reminder that home values in my area are a lot lower than in the Twin Cities, and we have excellent broadband thanks to a lot of our telecommunications companies. So if you work from home, you might want to think about coming down to where I come from.
Okay, thank you. Next on our list is Representative Petersburg, and then I have Representatives Murphy, Hudella, and Koegel.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of things. As we talked about earlier, it sounded like the real crux of this whole issue was a concern about the definition of last mile. And so I think that's something that we can work on, try to figure out how we redefine that so that it makes sense on what to deal with it. The other question is something in generic that we heard from the testifiers supporting this bill quite often, and that was that we are, people are working on this that are being paid $18 an hour or maybe a little bit more, but without benefits, or at least without, one I think said without prevailing wage value benefits. But with all of the mandates that was put in place last year with Safe and Sick Time and Family Leave Act and so forth, can anybody say whether or not that is still the case today? Because I think everybody who works in the state now qualifies for some sort of benefit packages, even vacation time. Does anybody know here? I mean,
Vice Chair Tabke.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and Lead Petersburg. Yeah, there are absolutely things that got put into place last year that are going to give added benefits around paid family medical leave, around earned sick and safe time, and different things like that. But the crux of what we are working on this bill is to make sure that everyone is, and kind of to piggyback on what you said and what Representative Olson said, is that this is a bill that we're making sure that people are, yes, paid appropriately, and I don't think that today we're going to litigate and argue prevailing wage, and it's a very clear discussion that we've been having for a long time around prevailing wage and how that works in Minnesota, and we can talk a lot about that in Chair Nelson's committee as well. And but what we're really needing to make sure here is that everyone has a floor and a baseline for what people get for not just wages and benefits, but also skill levels, and making sure. And to Representative Olson, like that absolutely is. I don't feel like anyone is saying, or maybe that 100% of the folks that are non-unionized are unskilled, low-wage labor. That's not what anybody is saying. It's that we have to make sure that we have a baseline to make sure that this is safe, because as we discussed, there's been a lot of pipeline hits and a lot of electrical hits that's not safe for folks in communities across the state, but also for those workers. We need to make sure that everyone is well equipped to do the job.
Representative Petersburg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Representative Tabke, you know, I think you're right. Nobody has said that. However, the implication or the basis for people's determination is based upon their own parameters. And to try to say that unskilled laborers are doing this job, you know that everybody started as an unskilled laborer and developed that skill under supervision. And we don't know exactly what that supervision is as well. And so the question becomes is do we need to wholesale change what we're doing at a cost that we're now hearing has a potential of sidelining our ability to actually accomplish what we're supposed to do based upon those perceptions, and whether or not we can mitigate those with other options. And so I think this bill is deals with some issues that have been brought up, but I think it's a big, heavy club, and maybe one that needs to be tweaked as it moves along. So I hope that can occur. I don't think it's ready for prime time right now, and so I will probably be voting no on the bill.
Okay. Thank you, Representative Petersburg, and then Representative Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't think this is about safety at all. I've been very involved in this line of business, and I've talked to all my telecom companies in my area, and they have a long history of doing this very safely and being very competent. And these installers are very long-term. They're not like short-term people that come into the area. They're people that have been involved in this business for many, many, many years. And so, you know, as far as the competency of the installers, we don't see it rurally. I have a question for you. It may be in the bill, but Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
But is our future projects only covered by this, or their existing projects, will they be covered, the bids? So that there's projects that are bid but they're not finished yet. Will they be covered?
Vice Chair Tabke.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and Representative Murphy. That is a good question that I will have to look up and see. I'm not sure if any of our testifiers know, but with it, yeah, absolutely everything going forward will be from here on out, if this does become law, will be included in it, but nothing will be renegotiated in the current contracts that are available, if that's what you're asking.
Mr. Chair?
Representative Murphy.
Yeah, well, the way this works is they have bids that they put out, and they're not finished. They make months and months of getting the inventory they need for the projects. That's how they estimate what their cost is going to be. We heard from Representative Olson that we're looking at extreme changes in cost. And in our area, in the rural area, we don't use prevailing wage, but we do have really competitive paid people for installers. And so that's going to definitely be a problem. You know, as far as the union mandate, I don't have a problem with unions as a whole, but this is a mandate. This is telling people how we need to operate our small businesses in rural Minnesota. And I see it being just a huge problem. And I'd like to ask for a roll call on this one if we could.
Roll call requested and granted.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Next, we have Representative Hudella, and then followed by Representative Koegel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have an issue in the trades in Minnesota, and I'll use an example of a mid-sized business in my district in Hastings. Known the owner for 20 years. He has a union business and a non-union business. He is struggling to get bids right now to find the work. He's being frequently undercut by companies that I'll just be very candid, bring in large pools of undocumented or unskilled labor and undercut his price. This is an owner that's supporting great unions in the trades as well as a non-union company as well. I actually like most components of the bill. Hopeful that the bill author and Lead Petersburg have some good conversations on the definition of what that last mile is. I was excited to see Representative Garofalo co-author the bill. And for the most part, I like it, so I look forward to supporting it based off of just further dialogue with Lead Petersburg and in the industry to define that last mile more clearly.
Thank you.
Representative Koegel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to, I really hope that people in Representative Murphy's district are using prevailing wage because it's the law. And so if there are folks that aren't, I think that should really be reported. And then also to Representative Olson, Blue Earth County is actually in Region 7 for prevailing wage, and Anoka County is in Region 9. So with the heavy construction, there is actually breakouts of different regions, so it's not a one-size-fits-all across the board. And then if you go to the commercial rates, it's actually by county. So I think those were just important clarifications that need to be made.
Thank you, Representative Koegel. Is there anyone else on the committee that wants to discuss the bill? Vice Chair Tabke.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members, for the really great discussion on this bill. I just appreciate everyone and very willing to work with folks to get this where it needs to be as it crosses the finish line. Again, I just want to reiterate the fact that this is making sure that we are using the broadband money that's coming in the state of Minnesota and that we are investing in our communities and that we are using this appropriately to make sure that the job gets done well, and by that we have an even level playing field for the work to get done well across the state. And so I just appreciate everyone's support and willingness to work together as this moves forward.
Thank you. We have a roll call on, I'll renew the motion that House File 4626 as amended be re-referred to the Committee on Labor, Industry, Finance, and Policy, and the committee legislative assistant will take the roll.
Chair Hornstein.
Aye.
Chair Hornstein, aye. Vice Chair Tabke.
Aye.
Vice Chair Tabke, aye. Lead Petersburg.
No.
Lead Petersburg, no. Representative Brand.
Brand votes aye.
Representative Brand votes aye. Representative Elkins.
Elkins, aye.
Representative Elkins, aye. Representative Fogelman.
No.
Representative Fogelman, no. Representative Hudella.
Aye.
Representative Hudella, aye. Representative Koegel.
Aye.
Representative Koegel, aye. Representative Kraft.
Aye.
Representative Kraft, aye. Representative Murphy.
No.
Representative Murphy, no. Representative Nelson.
Aye.
Representative Nelson, aye. Representative Norris.
Aye.
Representative Norris, aye. Representative Olson.
No.
Representative Olson, no. Representative Sensimura is excused. Representative West is excused. Mr. Chair, the ayes are 9, the nays are 5, and 2 excused. Oh,
There being 9.
4 noes. 8.
Okay, let's get this right. 8 ayes, 4 nays, the motion prevails.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we have 2 more bills on the agenda brought to us by Chair Koegel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Which one would you like me to move first?
We have House File 3697 as first.
All right, I will move.
Would you like to move your bill?
Mr. Chair, before we get there, I think the count should be 9-4. Is that not correct?
Okay, all right.
Sorry, I just.
No, we want to get this right. So 9 ayes, 4 nays on the previous vote. So, Representative Koegel, House File 3697.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to move House File 3697 to public safety. And so what House File 3697 does is it breaks out DWI felony or DWIs from just it breaks out alcohol-related and substance-related DWIs. This is the issue that hasn't been brought to me by any certain advocate, but it's something that my family has battled with for about the past 10 years. And so my brother had 3 DWIs, and none of them were alcohol-related. And for the past 4 years, he's had an ignition interlock in his car, which does not test for heroin, as far as I know. And so what we would like to do is break out the the alcohol-related incidents and the drug-related incidents, and make sure that the punishment fits the crime. And so what this would do is, if it was a drug-only related offense, then they would have to go through an extensive testing process in order to get their driver's license back. So it would actually be a program where they're testing for drugs instead of just alcohol. And so that is kind of the crux of the bill. And if somebody has both an alcohol-related DWI and a drug-related DWI, or if they are found with, multiple substances in their system, aren't they lucky? They get to get both. And so I really think this is just about making sure that our roads are as safe as possible. And we've seen an increase in the number of drug-only offenses. And so just want to make sure that we are punishing the right, making sure that we're getting to the right problem.
Okay. Discussion to the bill, or anyone from the audience wants to testify?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, we did have some folks testify, but with me, that wanted to testify, but with me being in and out the past couple weeks, I kind of messed it up, and so I assure you they will be at the next committee.
Okay, don't worry about it. We understand. Representative Petersburg.
Thank you. I would just inquire, is the Department of Public Safety, are they aware of this? What are their, do they have any concerns, et cetera, in regards to this policy? It makes some sense to me because obviously we're trying to enforce people not driving while they're intoxicated. And as far as I know, there's no way of determining drug-induced impairment as well. So this makes sense to me, but I'm wondering if the department has any concerns.
I'm sure we've had, Mr. Chair, Representative Petersburg, we've had lots of conversations with the department, and they do have concerns, and we're working through them. I know Director Zhang is here as well. And as far as like the testing, unfortunately, we don't have the technology where you can like a DWI or a breathalyzer that it shuts off the car. We're exploring possibilities, and one of the things that I keep coming back to, I don't know if you remember when we had the repo bill, where they could shut your cars off if you didn't make your payment. And I think we outlawed that, but if we could use that technology for something good, that might be one of the possibilities. And so there are some things to figure out still, but I want to work on it for sure.
Director, welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you. Pong Zhang, Director of the Driver and Vehicle Service Division. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Rep. Koegel. So yes, we have been working together with Rep. Koegel on this language, and we are neutral on the program as a whole. As it's being proposed, we have identified ways to administer it, and so from an administrative front, we have worked through those. But as far as ideations for continued growth and development, we're happy to continue those conversations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions from the committee? Seeing none, Representative Koegel, would you like to make any final comments and renew your motion?
Well, I thank you all for listening to me on this bill. It's been one that, like I said, my family's dealt with for a while, and my brother's almost 10 years sober now, but still has that stupid ignition interlock in his car. So, this won't affect him, but it will hopefully affect other people down the road. And so I will make the motion to re-refer House File 3697 to Public Safety.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the motion prevails. And House File 3697 on its way to public safety. So finally, members, we have another bill from Representative Koegel. And that is House File 4005.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will move House File 4005 to Judiciary.
Okay, to your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So what this bill does is it is another one dealing with substance abuse issues and addiction. And so this one was actually brought to me by a judge in Carlton County and their team up there. And so right now what's happening is folks are in treatment court. They have to participate in, so participants in treatment court have many demands on them to successfully complete the program. They have to, in addition to substance use treatment on an inpatient basis, they must attend outpatient treatment, attend court weekly, report to a probation department for a minimum of 2 urine analysis tests per week, and attend a minimum of 2 recovery support meeting event service hours. So when you're in Greater Minnesota, that means that you're driving a lot. So folks in these treatment courts are being basically told to break the law so they can comply with the law. They need to drive to get to their treatment court activities, but they're driving illegally. And what's happening is the judges are literally having to tell their clients to break, or telling these folks to break the law in order to comply with treatment court. And so what this would do is just simply give a provisional license to folks who are in treatment court and able to, so that they are able to participate in their treatment court and get there legally.
Thank you very much for that overview, Representative Greenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this in here, I guess I'm going to have to be a little harsher on, mainly because I've got to believe that there are other people in the county who don't have driver's license at all and are able to move around and get to places that they need to do. The reason for taking away their driver's license was for bad behavior. And to give it back even provisionally countermands that responsibility of the individual to make decisions on what they need to do in order to comply with the consequences of their actions. And so this really boils down to consequences of their actions and developing it. And so I really am concerned the fact that we're giving people the right to drive after we've taken it away provisionally. If a police officer stops somebody, how are they going to know that they're supposed to be going to drug court or whatever for driving it? And so I think this is a slippery slope that I'm not sure we want to move forward at this time. I'm wondering if there are other options in order for drug court or some of these things maybe could be done Zoom-wise or whatever, but I'm not sure that giving back the privilege that was taken away for the offense that they need to be accountable for is the right direction. So I have real concerns about that. And Representative Koegel, I know that this is passionate, and I understand the concerns. It's difficult to get in those situations, but that is the consequences and accountability for what we are, our actions. So I thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Vice Chair Tabke and then Representative Wilson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thanks for bringing this, Representative Koegel. I just wanted to ask a couple questions real quick. Is that what types of treatment court? Is it just drug treatment court? Is it vets court? Is it other things as well, or is it just that specific piece?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Representative Tabke. So there are 4 divisions. So there's the Treatment Court Institute, Impaired Driving Solutions, Justice for Vets, and Advancing the Center for Advancing Justice. And a few of these main programs do require weekly reporting to court hearings. So there's a lot of kind of checks that go along with this. These, if they were to miss one UA or one court or one meeting of the 6 that they have to do a week, that would throw up a flag, and it doesn't absolve them of any past crimes. So there is limits to how this provisional license would work. It definitely goes along the same lines as a work permit, and so there would be limited uses for the provisional license and lots of ways to lose it.
Vice Chair Tabke.
Yeah, thank you very much, Representative Koegel. So I totally agree with you that this is something that absolutely should happen because these folks that are going these treatment courts and vet court and everything like that have proven to be extremely successful in having folks come out the other end in much, much better shape than for the reasons why they got in there. So they've been extremely successful in getting there, and anything we can do to help them move forward down that path, I really think is a good thing because it takes a lot and it shows that the people who get into these specialized courts are showing and proving that they want to do the work to get where they need to go and not otherwise. So I just appreciate you bringing this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So being someone from greater Minnesota, I felt it necessary to make my yearly shout out to transit. Where I come from, we sent over 40,000 trips using the transit system within my counties. So there are, in fact, ways, just because you live in greater Minnesota doesn't mean that you're driving. It also means that someone is driving you. That's what it means. And so there are, in fact, options. I think that if this is a responsible way of addressing the issue, then we should move forward with it. But if it turns out to be an irresponsible way of addressing an issue, driving is a privilege, it's not a right. If this is responsible, good. If it's not responsible, there are, in fact, other ways. Living in greater Minnesota doesn't mean you're driving. It means someone else could drive you.
Thank you for that, Representative Wilson.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Chair Koegel.
Thank you. I think that's a good point, and I hope we can get more transit in other areas. The Carleton County judge that brought this to me, Judge Duma, I'm hoping I'm saying that right. She has to send a lot of her treatment court folks to Duluth, and it's 25 minutes away from Carleton County. And so the other thing is to, oftentimes people who are in these treatment courts don't have the support they need, and that's kind of why they're there in the treatment courts. Usually, sometimes they might have parents who are, in addiction as well. And so, one of the things that I always come back to is the fact that, like, when my brother was going through all this, we had a large support system around him. We were able to lift him up and support him, and not everybody has that, unfortunately. And so that's where I really think it's kind of our role as policymakers is to make sure that folks that don't have that support system that my brother had are still able to succeed. And so I think these treatment courts and stuff like that are a really good place for that support system to be built. And we know that the support and the peer recovery piece is usually the most important when it comes to long-term recovery. So.
Representative Petersburg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I agree with Vice Chair Tabke that drug courts have been very, very popular and have been very effective. But I believe part of that impetus is the fact that people want their driver's license back. And so they're willing to do the work, which then, because they're willing to do the work, they benefit from it. If we take that drive away, that impetus for why they should there. How would you like that one? You like that? Then I think there's also then maybe a few people may not take it as seriously because they know they have an out with it. So I don't know where that is. Human behavior is one of those things that is very difficult to predict, even with me sometimes. So I appreciate that. Again, I will just reiterate that I think this is a slippery slope, and I think when the consequences for your behavior sometimes have to have difficult solutions in difficult situations. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? Chair Koegel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I always like to say I love serving on transportation because I love to see the concrete results. So. Tabke liked that one.
Well, it's a reminder that infrastructure is your specialty. Okay, members.
I will renew my motion that House File 4005 be referred to public or judiciary.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the motion Oh, we have it up. The motion prevails, but not unanimously. Okay, members, that concludes our agenda today. Just a reminder that we will not be hearing Representative Kraft's bill today, but that's House File 2717, but we will be hearing it, I believe it's scheduled for next Tuesday, along with several other bills, and then we'll mark up a policy bill a week from today. So, looks like Tuesday will be a busy day, and stay tuned if we may need an extra evening evening, but we haven't determined that yet.
Maybe Friday or not.
Yeah, or that's a possibility too. So with that, members, we're adjourned.